Democratic Visions is handmade in Eden Prairie and Minnetonka by DFL Senate District 42.
We welcome Matt Entenza back to Democratic Visions. This time Matt is back in the capacity as one of the candidates for governor in the election of 2010. Welcome, Matt.
Good to see you.
Matt, what makes you run in this election?
Well, this is an election about the economy, Tim. People are looking for a hopeful vision of how we can create jobs and help make sure that the Minnesota economy is moving forward. I believe that Minnesota needs that sort of strong vision. I believe that the clean energy economy is one of the strongest ways we can do it. I believe in communities throughout the western Twin Cities. We have tremendous opportunities with solar energy, with manufacturing of wind turbines, with geothermal heating and cooling. We can create thousands of jobs, and we can make Minnesota the Silicon Valley of clean energy.
One of the issues, and I'm going to go through them all, has to do with equal rights for all. What are you focusing on in that regard, Matt?
Well, one of the ways that we measure a society is a society where everyone has the opportunity, not the guarantee, but the opportunity to succeed. And I'm very proud of the fact that as a legislator, that I worked very closely with a lot of companies around the state of Minnesota to make sure that our civil rights laws were strong and effectively enforced. I think that it's very important that we have no discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or of religion or gender. And some folks in the West Metro will recall a legislator named Arlen Lindner who made a lot of comments that were derogatory of people who were Hindus and Jews and others. And I'm proud that I was one of the legislators that stood up and said, the legislature has no place for speech that is saying that people who come from different backgrounds or of different religions should hold a lesser place in Minnesota. We need to make sure that everyone has opportunities to succeed.
Your website then alludes to the economy, and you've already spoken to your thought that perhaps Minnesota could become, quote, the Silicon Valley, unquote, in the energy field. Can you elaborate on that somewhat, please?
Well, the reality is, Minnesota is blessed with the fact that we have so many great companies here. But let's face it, in just the last couple of months, we've lost Northwest Airlines, one of our Fortune 500 companies. We've lost Pepsi America as another Fortune 500 company headquartered here. What are the next big technologies? Without a doubt, the area of energy is one of the areas where a few states are going to become the big winners, become the next Silicon Valleys. I believe that Minnesota should become that place. And we have tremendous opportunities here. Just to our south, down in Iowa, there Governor Vilsack and then Governor Culver replaced him on a very bipartisan basis, said, let's make sure that we become a leader in wind energy. And they've done that. Minnesota should, with 300 days a year of sun, with some of the best wind resources in the country, with biomass and with geothermal. We have huge opportunities. We can enter them immediately, create thousands of jobs, and not only that, help our environment and help make sure that we are keeping dollars here in Minnesota rather than exporting them to the Middle East.
But it's a fact, isn't it, Matt, that we already have extensive wind farms down in the southeastern part of the state, southwestern part of the state, I guess.
Which, of course, is where I'm from, and it's one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about this. The interesting thing, though, is the wind farms that we have tend to be isolated into just a few parts of the state. We're importing the equipment, not making it here, and 90% of those wind farms are actually owned by mostly actually out-of-country utilities. I believe that we should work to get the manufacturing here so we get the jobs here. We should do much more than the limited amount that we have right now. And the opportunities, Tim, aren't just in wind, they're in solar. We might be cold in the winter, but everyone knows that Minnesota is great because it's a sunny place when you're out cross-country skiing and enjoying the winter environment. And that's actually better for solar energy. We should be putting it across homes in places like Eden Prairie and throughout the western suburbs, jobs getting them up, jobs helping to maintain them, and then lowering people's heating and cooling bills so that we are making sure that we're keeping money here in our community. These are tremendous opportunities. Other states are beginning to race in that direction, and Minnesota should be the leader, should be that Silicon Valley.
Couple more issues. One is education. Now, I know that when you were in the legislature, you opposed the adoption of No Child Left Behind. Is that still your position?
No Child Left Behind has been a disaster for our schools. I mean, we know that schools like Eden Prairie High School and other schools in this area are excellent institutions. Now, our schools aren't without problems and things we need to work on, but I think the issue should not be labeling schools as failures. What we've done is over-test, use tests that aren't actually measuring whether or not our kids are succeeding. And as governor, I'm going to step in to say we're going to get rid of Leave No Child Behind, tell the federal government that we're going to get rid of this extraneous testing. We should have strong accountability, But I don't believe that telling teachers to spend all their time teaching kids to take tests makes sense. We should be teaching kids the lessons that they need to learn in the basics of reading and math and writing and other areas.
And finally, health care. Are you a supporter of the Obama program and presently in Congress to reform the health services system and include a public option in that process?
I strongly favor public option, always have. One of the things I'm very proud of is in 2005, as leader of the Democrats in the State House, in negotiating our state budget, Governor Pawlenty said we should get rid of Minnesota Care, which is a public option, allowing working people who are working jobs like waitering and waitressing and being janitors, low-wage jobs, to afford good health care. The governor wanted to eliminate that. He'd already cut it from over 30,000 people. A lot of folks had seen their benefits reduced. And in negotiating that budget, we said that our schools, like schools here in this area, and health care had to be a top priority. And not only did we succeed in saving Minnesota Care, but tens of thousands of people who had lost their health care, hardworking Minnesotans, got it back. I'm going to continue to make public options like Minnesota Care and Medicare and others top priorities to make sure that people can get access to health care.
Let's, with the benefit of hindsight, and I know that's always 2020. That's
why I founded Minnesota 2020, to talk
exactly.
about a positive value.
Touche. Put yourself in the shoes of the governor and the legislature at the conclusion of the last legislative session. Massive budget deficit. The parties were unable to reach any kind of basic understanding, and unfortunately, the government, through what I view as an abuse of power and probably an illegal act, chose to unallot. What's wrong with that picture?
Well, it's never a good idea to have a government run by a winner-take-all system. We have a system that's designed with checks and balances to try and get compromises. And of course what happened is Governor Pawlenty basically said, I'm just going to take all this on myself and I'm going to pick those winners and losers. As a result, tens of thousands of people are losing health care. School districts throughout the West Metro are seeing almost a third of their budget held back, and they're being given an IOU and told, hopefully in 2 years you'll see that money. And in the meantime, school districts are borrowing money, paying high interest, and having to make additional cuts. And I just think that's wrong. That's why in 2005, as leader of the Democrats in the House, to avoid that type of scenario, we made sure that before any bill was passed and sent on to the governor, we fully negotiated the bills, and the governor certainly was unhappy with things like making sure Minnesota Care stayed and some of the additional money that we forced for our schools, but we felt that was a top priority. Now, the governor got some things too that I wasn't crazy about, but that's the process of compromise. The reality is we need more of that. We need more people trying to work together, and that's the style of leadership that I want to bring to the Capitol. Focus, priorities, and making sure that things that bring us together like education and healthcare, and a focus on jobs. Because Tim, the bottom line is we can't cut ourselves to greatness, and we can't raise our taxes on ourselves to get greatness. We need to grow our economy, and that allows all the other good things to happen. And that's why I have such a strong focus on jobs in the economy.
We all know that it's difficult to persuade citizens of this state or the country to raise taxes on themselves.
Well, you know, people, I think, know that these so-called pledges to not raise taxes are as phony as a $3 bill. The reality is the so-called no new tax crowd have pushed responsibilities down to our schools, so our districts are now constantly coming out for referendums. You see property taxes flying up at the city and county level. People know that that's not working. And they also know that fees are going up. Now, Ronald Reagan, and I don't quote him a lot, but Ronald Reagan once said that fee is a three-letter word that he spelled T-A-X. And Tim Pawlenty has raised fees by over 65% over the last couple of years. Now, you can't say you oppose raising taxes and then through the back door raise all kinds of fees. My favorite one is the cost of a marriage license is doubled, and I can assure you they didn't make marriage any better. And what happened instead is they just made it harder for young families that want to get started paying a lot of money just because they want to get married. I think we need honesty, and I think we need to recognize that we're certainly not going to be able to solve everything in the debate on taxes alone. We're going to need to cut the size of state government, but we have to recognize that raising property taxes, which are the least tax based on the ability to pay, is wrong, and have an honest discussion about taxes in our state.